Quicksand. In 2015, a rhinoceros in South Africa used its horn to rescue a young zebra from a mud pit. Find the truth. Everything you are about to read is true except for one of the sentences on this page. Which one is true? True or false? Quicksand can be any kind of soil that is changed by a steady flow of water. True or false? Most quicksand sucks people and animals down quickly with little hope of escape. Find the answers in this book. Chapter 1. Stuck. It was a normal Saturday early in the spring of 2011 in Spokane, Washington. Friends Katie and Carl Hyatt and Andrew and Caleb Hummel met up to play. The children decided to go exploring in the forest near their houses. They didn't travel far into the woods before they came across a big mud pit. It looked like the perfect place to play. Most quicksand pools are only a few feet deep. A near tragedy. The mud was not as safe as it seemed. Andrew's foot soon became stuck in it. He saw that Katie and Carl were both starting to sink too. The three friends struggled to pull themselves out. Carl managed to escape, but Katie and Andrew were trapped. In fact, their efforts only made them sink deeper. The mud was very cold. The friends were becoming scared. Caleb ran for help. Caleb told the first adult he found about the emergency. The man called 911. By the time firefighters arrived, the mud had reached Katie's chest. She was shivering real bad, said firefighter John Merrick. I climbed in the mud with her to start digging her out. It took about 30 minutes to pull both children to safety. The children were cold but uninjured. How could mud have been so dangerous? Underneath this mud was quicksand. Chapter 2. Just add water. What do you imagine when you think of quicksand? Do incidents such as the mud pit in Washington come to mind? Perhaps you've seen a movie with an adventurous young explorer walking down a twisting jungle path. He suddenly feels the ground giving way under his feet. The wet sand sucks him down until he is up to his waist in it, then deeper. Only his head sticks out of the pool. That, too, is then swallowed up by the thick muck. Mont Saint-Michel in France is famous for the dangerous quicksand that surrounds it. A movie myth. Scenes like that make an exciting story, but it's more fiction than fact. Quicksand doesn't suck people completely under. In truth, people float in it. Most don't sink past their waist. Struggling can make people sink faster. Even then, most quicksand pools are only a few feet deep. If a person stays calm, he or she can usually escape safely. Quicksand can be dangerous, but when you know the facts, you can survive it. What is quicksand? Quicksand doesn't actually work quickly. Also, it is not always sand. In fact, any soil can become quicksand. The main ingredient needed to turn sand, dirt, or gravel into quicksand is water. Ordinary soil made up of tiny grains bound tightly together to form solid ground. When it mixes with water, it's in just the right way, the ground turns mushy and can no longer support weight. Quicksand can occur wherever there is water. Damp jungles, marshes, lakes, beaches, and land along streams are all placed where you might find quicksand. Quicksand usually forms in connection with underground streams or springs in these areas. There, water constantly flows in from underneath to saturate the ground. This agitates or moves the grains of soil, pushes them apart, and allows more water to flow in. As a result, the ground transforms into quicksand. At the beach. Beaches are perfect places for quicksand because of the combination of sand and water. The driest part of the beach is firm because the sand grains are packed tightly together and mostly dry, but closer to the water. The sand becomes less firm. This is because of the flow of seawater over and under the sand. In some places, enough water may constantly flow up from underneath Then beach sand turns into quicksand. Earthquakes. Most quicksand is created slowly and in the same way it is made on beaches. But there is another way quicksand can be made, and it can happen with great suddenness. Earthquakes shake and break Earth's surface. In doing so, they can cause water to move around in the soil and force soil grains apart. This sudden saturation can liquefy the ground and create quicksand. This kind of quicksand can be far more dangerous. It threatens not only buildings, but also people and animals. As the earth softens, buildings can collapse or sink. When an earthquake struck the city of Niigata, Japan, in 1964, the earth turned to quicksand. Apartment buildings fell over onto their sides. People had to climb out of the windows to exit the buildings safely. Fortunately, such quicksand is rarely that severe. Chapter 3. A world of shifting sand. Quicksand can be found around the world, however. There are certain areas that are particularly famous or infamous for quicksand. Travelers can learn over time to avoid such places at all costs. One example is Morecambe Bay. This vast region of mud flats and sand lie along the coast of northwestern England. It covers 120 square miles. The area is a place of great natural beauty and great danger. Dangerous waters. Quicksand on the mudflats of Morecambe Bay has long been known to trap fishers and swimmers. When the tide sweeps in, the visitors are unable to move and they drown. In the early 1800s, horse-drawn coaches crossing the area would sink or be overturned in the quicksand. It was so dangerous that officials stopped the coach service in 1857. In 2004, 24 Chinese immigrant workers were gathering shellfish along the beaches of the bay at night. The tide rolled in suddenly. The workers became stuck in the sinking sand and were unable to reach dry land. One called frantically for help on his cell phone. "Sinking water," he said. "Many, many sinking water." Only one person survived, rescued by a helicopter. Mother of poison. Deserts have little water and rarely have quicksand, but there are exceptions. The Rub al-Khali in Saudi Arabia and Oman is the largest sand desert in the world. It spans 250,000 square miles. One corner is covered with salt marshes. This area is called al-Samim, or Mother of Poison. Under a thin top crust hides dangerous quicksand. Over the years, goat herds and whole caravans of people have disappeared there. Graveyard for tanks. Another desert famous for quicksand is the Guadalatara Depression in northwestern Egypt. This region contains the second lowest point in Africa. It is 436 feet below sea level. Like the Ruba al-Khala, Qatar's salt marshes are dotted with quicksand. During the 1942 Battle of El Alamein in World War II, some tanks and other military vehicles became permanently trapped in it. Quicksand in the United States. Quicksand is found across the United States. It is particularly common in Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina. In the Southwest, salt erodes from the sandstone canyons and enters the soil. This makes the soil less stable, increasing the risk of quicksand. In July 2014, friends of a 78-year-old woman reported her missing in Utah. Police found her trapped in quicksand in Arches National Park, where she worked. She had been there for 14 hours. It took 4 people to help her out. Dinosaur Bones. Most people see quicksand as a danger, as they should. However, it can also have great value. In 2001, researchers found a massive collection of dinosaur fossils in Utah's sandstone. Scientists believe the animals died in quicksand. When one dinosaur became trapped, it attracted hungry predators, which then also became trapped and eventually died. Buried in the sand and protected from wind and rain, The animals were preserved as fossils over millions of years. Stuck in the Muck, Chapter 4. People rarely die in quicksand, but it does pose dangers if someone becomes trapped in it. These dangers include being left exposed to the hot sun or intense cold, as well as rain or snow. Intense cold may cause hypothermia. Someone who is trapped for an extended period might starve or die of thirst. If the quicksand is along the shore, a trapped person could drown when the tide comes in. Escape. Even though quicksand is dangerous, it doesn't mean you should never go exploring in the great outdoors. There are steps you can take to avoid quicksand. If you do stumble into it, there's no need to panic. You can escape safely if you remain calm and know what to do. Know where you are. The best way to escape quicksand is to avoid it. Know the area where you are. If there are quicksand pools, learn their locations and stay away from them. A pool might be new or unexpected. If the ground looks wet, test it with a walking stick. If the stick sinks, the ground may be quicksand. Also, you can't always see quicksand. Leaves or other debris may cover its surface. Tread carefully wherever there's a risk of quicksand. Have a hiking buddy. Always hike with a friend, especially in areas you don't know. If you step into quicksand, your buddy can call 911 or go get help. Quicksand is incredibly heavy, and if you fall in, your weight will push water out of the sand, making it even more solid around you. It may not be possible for your friend to pull you out, and it can be dangerous to try. You could get hurt being pulled, and you also risk pulling your friend in with you. Don't panic. If you are alone when you fall into quicksand, the first important rule is to stay calm. You will sink if you struggle and thrash about with your arms and legs. It is a good idea to shed any extra weight you are carrying, such as a heavy backpack. Take off your shoes too, especially if they are boots or heavy shoes. These could make it harder for you to get out. Find a way to float. Your body is lighter than the quicksand, so you can float in it on your back as you do in water. Start to lean back, then wiggle your legs a little. This slightly agitates the soil, allowing water back in to soften it. Work slowly. Moving fast sucks you in, but moving slowly allows you to gradually pull yourself out. When both legs reach the surface, you can crawl to solid land on your belly. Sinking experiments. People still have a lot to learn about quicksand. In the early 2000s, physicist Daniel Bohn and his team at the University of Amsterdam tested how far a person could really sink into quicksand. They did this with beads that were the same density as a human body, so they would float or sink as a person would. When dropped into quicksand, they floated on top. Even when shaken, the beads did not sink completely. The same would happen to a person. The Big Truth Dry Quicksand. There have long been stories about another dangerous quicksand, dry quicksand. It is said to look exactly like the stable sand that surrounds it. Many people have doubted the tale about unsuspecting animals and humans being swallowed instantly by dry quicksand, sometimes during sandstorms. But in 2004, scientists in the Netherlands demonstrated that the tales could be true. Traditional wet quicksand occurs when water flows into sand or soil, agitating it and becoming trapped. Physicist Detlef Loos wondered what would happen if air instead of water agitated the soil. He and his team tried it with a container of sand. They first forced air into the sand. When the sand settled, it looked exactly as it had before. Then they dropped a weighted ping pong ball into it. The sand swallowed the ball immediately, sending a jet of sand into the air. The team had demonstrated that the legends could be true. They also proved that dry quicksand could be even more dangerous than wet quicksand. It works much faster. Objects sink deeper in it, and it is impossible to spot. Doubt remains, however, about how often dry quicksand might actually occur in nature. Chapter 5, Quicksand's Deadly Cousin. Quick clay is similar to quicksand. It is a combination of water and particles of earth. It can also liquefy under certain conditions, but that is where the resemblance ends. Quick clay can be far more destructive and deadly than quicksand, turning into sudden, unexpected, uncontrollable clay slides. Sudden destruction. Quick clay is found mainly in regions that have large deposits of marine clay. As the glaciers of the last ice age shrank thousands of years ago, they left thick clay behind. The clay is mixed with large amounts of water. Surface tension holds the clay together in a jelly-like form. When disturbed, the clay can turn to a liquid ooze with frightening speed. The disturbance could be an earthquake. It could also be human activity such as digging. Endangered countries. Most marine clay deposits are found in northern countries. Among them are Norway, Sweden, Finland, Russia, and Canada. Some reach as far south as the United States, so no country is more at risk of quick clay slides than Norway. Some of Norway's best farmland sits atop quick clay. As a result, large populations are located on this fertile land. Disaster in Norway. On April 29, 1978, in the Norwegian town of Rissa, a farmer dug out a section of his land. He planned to build a new wing on his barn. The digging caused a disturbance, however, setting off a huge clay slide. For 5 minutes, the land crumbled into a nearby lake. The farmer watched his entire farm float away at a speed of 20 miles per hour. One witness saw the clay slide coming towards him like a sea wave. By the time it ended, it had swept away 7 farms and 5 homes. Of the 40 people caught in the slides, only 1 died. People have not been so fortunate in other slides. A quick clay slide in 1893 in Verdal, Norway, killed 116 people. This was almost half of the village's population. Testing and prevention. In recent years, scientists have studied the land where marine clay can turn to quick clay. They have conducted tests to see how sensitive the clay is. In 1991, researchers analyzed the clay in Limoux, Canada, near the city of Ottawa. Finding that the clay was potentially quite dangerous, they told the residents to abandon the town. It was good that everyone left. 2 years later, a serious slide occurred there. Being safe. Tests such as these help people prepare for possible quick clay slides. Scientists also continue to study traditional wet quicksand. They search for details about how quicksand works and where it is likely to be found. The information helps people know exactly how to recognize, avoid, and escape this dangerous substance and remain safe. Quicksand.